of you all are aware that there is a subject known as AFM in your paper 2, which stands for Advanced Financial Management. So now, हमको पेपर तो पता है. We know our objective also कि we want to get very good marks in this subject. But how to go about that? How to get that mega exemption? What are the small things that you need to keep in mind when you are writing the paper? And even before writing the paper, what are the small things that you need to keep in mind to complete this subject properly in the 1.5 days time that is left with you all after your FR and before your AFM? Clear? So moving ahead, we'll just see what are the chapters in this particular subject. वहां पर बाजू में I have put a red blob. There's something written over there. क्या लिखा है वहां पर? Forex and derivatives only is not AFM. How many of y'all do not agree with it? Or how many of y'all agree with it? ये मुझे chat box में through responses, will you all give me answer to that? How many of y'all whether agree or disagree with it? Tanuja agrees that AFM is not only Forex and derivatives. Toshit also agrees. और कोई है? Kirti also agrees. So there are people who agree that AFM में सिर्फ Forex और derivatives नहीं है. Then why do we end up giving Forex and derivatives the maximum time when we are doing our studies? How many of you all over here are present who give maximum time of your AFM studies into Forex and derivatives? Show me with a hands up or with a message in the chat box that you all give maximum time or don't give maximum time to. Rohan is saying that he gives maximum time to this particular topic in AFM. Tanuja, I do. My simple question to you all, a very layman question. अगर तुम खुद मानते हो कि this is not AFM, मतलब not only a part, these two are not only AFM, then why do you end up giving maximum time to it? This is the first and most crucial mistake which 95% of the students of AFM end up doing. कि अगर फॉरेक्स डेरिवेटिव्स नहीं किया तो हमारा AFM का पेपर हमारे हाथ में नहीं है. It's gone. Tanuja is saying weightage. I'll cover that particular aspect in just the next 5 minutes. हम लोग ये सोचते, coming back to what we said, we think that if we don't do forex, if we don't do derivatives, we will fail the subject. कितने लोग ये मानते हैं? I think majority over here would be believing that if we don't do forex, if we don't do derivatives, we will fail in AFM. Just a little bit of an eye opener. Forex plus derivatives के मिला के एग्जाम में क्वेश्चंस आते कितने हैं? 3, max 4. Not fail but won't get exemption is what Manjot says. We'll try to clear that myth also in a while. Coming back, forex and derivatives, maximum तुम्हारे पेपर में तुमको including MCQs कितने क्वेश्चन दिखते हैं forex and derivatives? 3 to 4, not more than that. And what is the maximum weightage nowadays which each question has in the new scheme? 5 to 6 marks. Assuming you have 3 questions which have come in, the descriptive section, मतलब 15 mark के question आए हैं, and 1 MCQ scenario from forex or derivatives. Again, 6 to 8 marks has come in. So on the maximum side, what is the weightage which gets covered in your paper? 15 plus 8 is 23. So nearly 23 to maximum 25 marks in a paper which is set for 114 marks comes in your exam. तो इतना इज्जत क्यों देना उसको कि हम हमारा पूरा टाइम ऑफ स्टडीज सिर्फ फॉरेक्स और डेरिवेटिव्स में निकाल ले. We will have to plan smartly when to do forex and when to do derivatives. I am nowhere saying तुमको omit करना है, but I am reiterating that these two should not be your first chapters to start studying AFM. Clear with this particular part? Anyone any doubts? Then you can just drop text messages in the chat box. Clear? Like a while ago, Tanuja specified it's about the weightage. अगर मैं वेटेज की बात करूं, क्या तुमको सिक्योरिटाइजेशन से मिनिमम एक क्वेश्चन एग्जाम में दिखता है? यस. क्या तुमको स्टार्टअप फाइनेंस से मिनिमम एक क्वेश्चन दिखता है? यस. डू यू सी मिनिमम वन क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम म्यूचुअल फंड्स इन योर एग्जाम? यस. डू यू सी मिनिमम वन क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम कैप बजटिंग? यस. Do you see minimum one question from either equity or bond valuations in your exam? At many times you see one each from each of these chapters. So can I say security valuations भी paper में minimum एक question दिखता है? Yes. Do you see any question of mergers? या कभी कोई ऐसा CA final का paper देखा है AFM का where you don't see mergers? It is impossible. There will be a question on mergers. So if I have to now count these chapters, cap budgeting, 5 marks. Security valuation, 5 to 8 marks. Securitization, 4 marks. Mutual funds, 5 to 8 marks, because normally they even ask it as an MCQ. Mergers, 5 to 8 marks. Startup finance, 4 marks. What is the average that comes to 5 plus 8, 13 plus 4, 17 plus 8, 25 plus 8, 33 plus 4, 37 marks. Minimum. Or at least I can say 35 marks comes from these chapters. Correct or not correct? You all can answer this in chat box. How many of you all agree with it and how many of you all disagree with it? Toshit agrees, Tanuja agrees. Yes, yes. And in addition to the descriptive part, क्या ये MCQs में भी दिखते हैं chapters? Do you see these chapters somewhere in your MCQ section also? So basically the weightage is somewhere greater than 35. Or I can, if randomly just put it, say it's 35 on a 84 mark descriptive question paper that you've got. Now why 84? क्योंकि 70 तो हमको attempt करना होता है, one extra question which is set in the paper. So 35 on 84, correct? Which has comparatively, as an aggregate, lesser concepts than forex and derivatives. How many of you all agree to this? That all these chapters combined have lesser concepts as compared to forex and derivatives. कि इनमें ज्यादा concepts है. You can write in the chat box. हो गए हो क्या सब लोग सुबह सुबह? Agree. And forex derivatives max कितने मार्क्स के लिए आएगा including MCQs? 24. ये कितने के लिए आएगा? 35 minimum. So why not start your studies? And sorry, I forgot one more chapter, portfolio management. इसका तो एक क्वेश्चन मिनिमम रहता है पेपर में, which again will be for say 5 marks. So मतलब मोटा मोटी 40 marks comes from other chapters. Here I have not included risk management, business valuations, XYZ. I'm trying to include chapters which are relatively smaller in size, lesser in number of aggregate concepts as covered to forex and derivatives, and less time consuming. Clear? So chapters which I would suggest that you start your studies of AFM from will be, I'm writing down the ranking or the priority order in which you should now solve these chapters or study these chapters. So please note it down. The first chapter that you do should be security valuations, which is nothing but equity and bonds. समझा कि नहीं समझा? Now, since you've done the equity part and the bond part of this chapter, the second chapter which you should pick up is business valuations, which has your FCFF, FCFE, Alker model, and economic value added. Because all these are concepts which are linked to the equity part of security valuation. Understanding? After this, you jump to the chapter of mergers and acquisitions, because mergers also eventually has concepts which you cover in equity and as well as to some extent in business valuation. Clear? After doing this, jump to portfolio management, because that also to some extent is having formulae from equity, and the other part is your regression analysis that we studied in maths in our schooling at 12th standard or 10th standard. Clear? So this 4 chapters, chapter 1 to chapter 4, security valuation, business valuation, mergers and acquisitions, and portfolio management, is your category 1 of chapters which you have to do from the very beginning. इनसे start करना है तुमको. Clear? Then second category is your theory chapters, which is startup finance, securitization, risk management, and financial policy. How many of you all have over here seen Shark Tank India? कितने लोगों ने देखा है वो चैप्टर सब्जेक्ट सॉरी वो सीरियल ऑन सोनी लिव? आई एम गेटिंग कंफ्यूज बिटवीन चैप्टर. मंजूत ने बोला आई. सिर्फ मंजूत ने देखा, नो वन एल्स हैज सीन दिस. Ashutosh has seen it, Tanuja has seen it, Toshit Mangal, not even a single season or not even a single reel that has come on your Instagram about Startup Shark Tank India. कभी तो किधर कुछ देख लिया होगा, राइट? अगर तुम लॉजिकली लिंक करना चाहो उसको AFM से, इज दैट नॉट व्हाट योर चैप्टर ऑफ स्टार्टअप फाइनेंस इज? कितने लोग अग्री करते कि जो हम स्टार्टअप फाइनेंस में पढ़ रहे हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं हमको शार्क टैंक में दिखता है? तनुजा अग्रीज, मंजूत अग्रीज, बराबर, आशुतोष अग्रीज. तो अगर ये ऐसा चैप्टर है जो हमको किसी रील के थ्रू पढ़ने मिल गया एंड वी स्टूड एंड अंडरस्टूड द कॉन्सेप्ट, we'll just have to put in that little extra effort to understand technical answers over there, like what are the sources of venture capital financing, what are the offshore funds, domestic funds, right? ऐसा कुछ है उस चैप्टर में. what is the startup India initiative, what are the features of that initiative? Clear? तो थोड़ी मेहनत करोगे तो ये चैप्टर्स भी तुम्हारे कवर हो जाएंगे, और यहाँ से तुमको मिनिमम 2 से 3 क्वेश्चन तो आने ही है ना, which will be theory questions. If you all would have seen in your descriptive section, your question C, wherever they give a question C, is mostly a theory question. Theory यहीं से आना है. Why not put in that time for chapters which will have max 20 marks, 20 questions of theory? Startup plus securitization plus risk management मिला लोगे तो 20 से ज्यादा क्वेश्चन नहीं है, और वहां से 2 क्वेश्चन मिनिमम आने हैं for 8 marks. So that normally I categorize as category 2. That is the category which you have to start after doing the entire equity chunk to give you a near coverage of 20 marks plus 8 marks, which is 28 marks minimum. Clear? Then go to category 3, which will comprise of mutual funds, advanced capital budgeting, and security analysis, which again on an average will come for minimum 10 to 15 marks. और ये मैं डिस्क्रिप्टिव सेक्शन की बात कर रहा हूँ गाइस, आई एम नॉट इंक्लूडिंग एमसीक्यूज हियर। समझा कि नहीं समझा? तो 20 + 8 + 10 मार्क्स, मतलब मोटा मोटी 40 मार्क्स। The last chapter in category 3 was security analysis, where you have your exponential moving average, weak form of market efficiency, and you have a lot of theory about diagrams. What are the XYZ chart, Dow Jones theory, head and shoulders, bar sticks, XYZ. Clear? That is category 3. And बचा क्या end में? The chunk of chapters which we consider as for ये chapters नहीं किए तो AFM नहीं किया, which is forex and derivatives. So do that category towards the end. After you've covered like around 40-45 marks from the 84 mark descriptive chunk, then jump to forex derivatives. Reason being, ये जो category 1, 2, 3 किया है तुमने, उसमें से तुमको डिस्क्रिप्टिव में तो क्वेश्चन दिखने ही दिखने हैं, बट इन योर एमसीक्यू सिनारियो इफ दे गिव यू 4 क्वेश्चन, 2 will be from your minimum. If they give you 5 questions, 3 will be from your minimum. So majority chunk is getting covered from this chapter. So start with these chapters. They have lesser concepts in aggregate as compared to forex derivatives, and they are easy to do and they are scoring. समझा कि नहीं समझा? Are you all with me on this? Or do you all have some confusion regarding this? Anmol is a bit convinced about this. What about others? Are they convinced or confused? Roshni is thumbs up. Tanuja is sorted. Toshit is sorted. Clear? Yes, sir. Convinced, convinced, convinced. So now we've segregated our subject into what should be our segments of covering the subject. Now, how to approach the questions in the examination. Like how we know, you have 2 sections. You have an MCQ section which is for 30 marks, and you have a descriptive section which is for 70 marks. Mandatory. पेपर बन के कितने का आता है? 84 का है. For descriptive, you have to attempt 70 marks mandatory. In MCQs, luck by chance, unfortunately, you don't get options in MCQs. वो जो है वो है, it's there. 30 ही आने हैं, 30 marks और 30 तुमको लिखने हैं. Max what possibility can happen is, it can be MCQs of maybe say 2 marks, or it can be MCQs of some 1 mark and some 2 marks mixed. Like May, you saw there were only 2 mark MCQs. November also there were 2 mark MCQs. I am saying the most unplausible thing that can happen is you may get MCQs which is a mix of 1 and 2 marks. तो हमको क्या करना है? वही, it's sums that normally come in your MCQs. You will still have to roughly solve those questions. Now, when it comes to roughly solving those questions, your calci tricks or your command over the use of your calculator will play a very important role. कैल्सी तुमको अगर अच्छे से यूज करना आता है या कैल्सी की ट्रिक्स तुमको आती है, देन इट इज अ रिलेटिवली वेरी लेस टाइम कंज्यूमिंग सेक्शन फॉर यू टू कंप्लीट इन योर एग्जाम. सो नाउ सर, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय कैल्सी अच्छे से यूज करना आता है? सिंपल कैल्सी है प्लस माइनस. आई एम सेइंग ट्रिक्स अबाउट having a common divisor already set into your calci using m plus mrc as well as gt, क्योंकि वो सब चीजें तुमको पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजमेंट के सम्स में बहुत काम आनी है. सो यू शुड बी वेल वर्स्ड विथ हाउ यू विल यूज योर कैलकुलेटर. हाउ मेनी ऑफ y'all over here use the Casio Calci? Just by show of hands. कि सर Casio Calci नहीं यूज करते, we are citizen. Anmol uses a Casio Calci. Tanuja uses a Casio Calci. So all are using Casio Calcis. Citizen वाला कोई है कि नहीं है? You can write in the chat box whether it's Casio or whether it's Citizen. Rohan is Citizen. Manjot citizen, Toshit is Casio. Vamsi is Casio. So this now is a question for guys who use citizen calci. If you've done some calculation, by mistake, all clear button दब गया. What happens? You have set some items in your memory, m plus m minus कुछ किया है तुमने, and गलती से all clear button दब गया. What happens? Rohan and Manjot can give me an answer for this, that what happens when something like that happens, when you've done some calculations in memory, m plus किया है या m minus किया है, and then अचानक से you end up pressing the all clear button by mistake. What happens? खत्म, टाटा, goodbye गया. Same question now for Casio guys. What happens on your calci when you do that?
वो फिर भी रिटेन रहता है मेमोरी में.
वो रिटेन रहता है मेमोरी में, राइट? गुड थिंग और बैड थिंग? It's a good thing that it stays retained. So one drawback for people who use citizen is तुम गलती से भी all clear button सम खत्म होने के पहले प्रेस करने की रिस्क नहीं उठा सकते, गलती से भी. Because what will happen? Then you'll have to do the calculations again. Clear? Now a question again for citizen guys. अगर मुझे प्रेजेंट वैल्यू फैक्टर का कॉलम बनाना है at 10%, where the cash flows are 100, 120, 125, 130 and 150 for year 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. तुम ये कैसे निकालोगे? You सीधा do 1 divide by 1.1 और फिर equal to, करेक्ट? तो तुमको क्या आएगा? 0.909, 0.826, 0.751, 0.683, 0.621, ऐसा ही कुछ आता है, राइट? Yes or no? Now, how do you find the present value of cash flows का column में? Any one of the citizen people can unmute and just explain. It's fine. क्योंकि typing में you all will go mad typing what you all do. So either one of you all, either Toshit or Manjot, you all can unmute us by multiply. Multiply what? 100 into 0.909, 120 into 0.826. वैसा करके and then do m plus of all of these and then get the answer. तो सिटीजन गाइस क्या करते हैं? पहले पीवीएफ ढूंढते हैं and then they multiply the PVF with the cash flow table and then they either do GT or they do MRC. अभी अगर तुम GT कर रहे हो, you'll have to first press all clear. Why? क्योंकि तुमने जब प्रेजेंट वैल्यू फैक्टर्स ढूंढे तब एवरीथिंग हैज गॉन इनटू जीटी ऑलरेडी. अग्रीइंग मंजोत टू दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग, तोशित अग्रीइंग, तो तुमको ऑल क्लियर प्रेस करना पड़ेगा, देन डू दिस कैलकुलेशन अगेन. नाउ कमिंग टू कैजियो पीपल, तुम कैसे ढूंढते हो इसको? हाउ डू यू ऑल फाइंड इट? हु आर द पीपल हु सेड कैजियो? Vamsi.
I do the same thing.
Oh, so you are a Casio guy and you still do the same thing?
Yeah.
What's the model of the calci that you use?
It's MJ 12D.
Correct. Now I'll just show a trick to the Casio guys. How many of you all have your calcis handy? The Casio
I
people.
do have.
Just write 1.1 on your calci and press the divide button twice. You'll see a magical item that has now come on your calci display, which is a K. Do you all see that for the Casio guys?
No.
Okay. Any other Casio guy who has this? ठीक है.
Sir, after pressing divide button for twice, then we have to press the equal button as well, na?
No, 1.1 and press your divide button twice. Do you all get something like this? K on your device, calci. I'm not sure if I'm visible on the screen or not.
No. Your calcium was not visible.
No, sir. No,
Just
sir,
a,
it's not visible.
just a second, I'll unblur the video. Now is it visible? Like you'll see some key that has come up over here. Something's written on top over here in my calci.
Yeah, it's visible, but it's not showing in my calcium.
Correct. So now for those people who can see it and for those who cannot see it in the calci, just write now 1 on your calci. 1.1 divide कर लिया, अभी 1 लिखो वहां पर. And then press your equal to button. What do you get on your calci? 0.90909090.
It's 1.1 for mine.
So basically, it's only in no. This is there in all MJ calcis of Casio. So irrespective
working
whether
for
the
mine.
K comes or doesn't come, I'm just trying to say if you do 1.1, press your divide button twice, then write a 1 and press equal to, you'll get 0.909.
No, sir, it's not getting like that.
So what are you getting on your calci then?
1.1 आ रहा है सर.
1.1. Sir, shall I share something? Like, if I click like 1.1, then divide button twice times, and then just when I press equal, then I get 0.000, like
Okay, so when you
90909.
directly press the equal to, you are getting the 0.909 and then you get
Yes.
0.826,
Yeah.
0.751, 0.683, 0.621, like it will keep on going, correct? Okay, that I think would then be a software upgrade that they've done on the calcis, because in the earlier version, they used to have, you need to press the 1 if you want the value of 1. So on and so forth. That's what I was saying 1. Clear this part. Now, will you find this 100 into 0.909? ऐसा करोगे तो क्या करोगे? How do you all
जनरली तो
find?
मैंने ऐसा ही करता हूँ.
अभी कैल्सी पे सिर्फ 100 लिखो और इक्वल टू प्रेस करो. What do you get? क्या आता है ऐसा कुछ कि नहीं आता है ऐसा कुछ?
यस सर आ रहा है.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
120 लिखो कैल्सी पे अभी and press your equal to button twice.
Yes, working.
125 and equal to button thrice.
93.91.
93.91.
130 and equal to button 4 times.
88.79.
88.79.
93.13 लास्ट.
और ये सब चीजें तुमने M प्लस में डाली है कि नहीं डाली है?
No.
No sir.
अगर at every step when you get this, if you just press M plus when you have this amount on your calci, you've also got this directly. Now, why this particular approach to follow, sir? Because this gives you a more accurate answer when you're doing trial and error also. अभी कितने लोगों ने ऑल क्लियर प्रेस कर दिया कैल्सी पे?
I did.
कर दिया कि नहीं किया अभी तक?
कर दी।
Not yet.
वही नहीं करना था. Now, if you know you have your buttons on the top left for arrows of going up and arrows of going down. If you press your arrow of going down, this button, you'll come to 1.1 on your calci. जो हमने फर्स्ट स्टेप में डाला हुआ था 1.1. यस, या कुछ और है कैल्सी पे?
One is there.
1 is there और उसके नीचे what is your, I want you all to go to the step
उसके
where you
बाद
have this
1.1 आता है.
1.1.
उसके बाद 1.1 आता है. उसके बाद
ठीक है,
on
so go to
second.
that step of 1.1, press the correct button on your calci and change the present value factor to 12%. That is 1.12. And now correct your calci.
It's all corrected.
This is also very helpful when you have to do interpolation. It will help you to identify कि तुम्हारा NPV किन दो values के बीच में फंस जाएगा. So you don't have to make the NPV calculation thrice. समझा कि confused?
पर आगे जाके जब मैं उसको देखता हूँ तो वो सारी जगह करेक्ट नहीं हुआ है.
Okay. What do you have in your memory now then as value?
लाइक फर्स्ट दोबारा करेक्ट करना पड़ेगा 1.12. आफ्टर दैट करेक्ट.
जो
उसके
value
बाद
is
फिर
the
दोबारा
cheapest
आगे
MR
जाके जब
should
मैं
be
100 पे आता हूँ
441.65 at 12%.
नहीं, उसके बाद जब मैं आगे जाके दोबारा चेक कर रहा हूँ तो वो 1.1 ही लिखा आ रहा है.
Okay. Then this, I think they've done a software upgrade or a software downgrade. Because earlier when there was this particular model DA, not just 120 DA, but any DA model of a Casio Calci, this is what we used to do. You can directly try your trial and error interpolation sums like this. Just correct one figure, it will automatically correct all the subsequent calculations. So it used to
सब्सिक्वेंट
save time.
कैलकुलेशन में उसने 1.1 ही पिक किया रखा है.
So then I think they've done a software downgrade. For people who are using Casio Calcis, I would recommend you all to buy any Calci from the DA category because the keypad is the same, the outlay is the same. It's only this feature that gets added on. So तुम्हारे लिए it's not like तुम एक नया Calci का body use कर रहे हो because your muscle memory already has those keys in the muscle memory. This will help you a lot even during MCQ questions when you have to do your calculations quickly. समझा कि नहीं समझा? Amol, do you have a doubt or you are understanding it why I'm saying to take a DA category?
Yeah, I understand it.
Clear? जिनका citizen है, I would not recommend you all to buy a new Calci now. Simple reason that your hands have not adapted to the new Calci and it's high time that you don't change it now. You all can follow the traditional method that you all are doing when you are solving your calculations. Clear? Now coming to the descriptive section. A bit descriptive section, what do I mean? We have to write that answer. So the question that comes before us is, how do we write that answer? So I will pick up a question which has come in the exam itself for 8 marks and how it was ideally presented and what made sure that you score the full 8 marks in the question. How many of you all have seen a question like this while studying derivatives in your classes or in your self-study? Oh, what an irony. I tell you to do derivatives, do in the last, and I'm picking up a question on derivatives. Session duration max like around 15-20 minutes more. And then I'll pick up your doubts if you all have any, and then we'll end the session. कितनों ने ये क्वेश्चन देखा हुआ है ओवरनाइट इंडेक्स स्वैप्स का?
सर देखा है मैंने.
देखा हुआ है, देखा है ना, मतलब इट्स नॉट लाइक समथिंग न्यू कि भाई ये क्या हो गया. अभी
Yes,
नॉर्मली
sir.
हम क्वेश्चन में क्या करते हैं? You can roughly explain, Aman. Tension na lo. I have seen in November 24, but not attempted. तभी ये 5 मार्क के लिए आया था. Questions which get repeated lose its value. Time value of money के हिसाब से. There is time decay. वैसे हम लोग बोलते there is marks decay. एक जमाने में 8 मार्क आया था. फिर it will come for 5 marks. Then eventually it will become an MCQ question for 2 marks. So there will be this decay that will happen in your exam. So continuing with Aman, how do you normally solve this question?
सर इसमें सर डे वाइज निकालते हैं, जैसे कि मंडे को क्या था, ट्यूसडे, वेडनेसडे, थर्सडे, फ्राइडे, डे वाइज निकालते हैं सर. इसमें कैलकुलेशन
दिन
करते हैं.
7 है और रेट 6 है. If you see the question, it is for a period of 7 days with only 6 interest rates. अब क्या करूं?
सर इसमें सर 1 डे सर नहीं लेते हैं, कोई एक डे होता है उसको कंसीडर हम लोग नहीं करते हैं. तो
क्या हम वो चीज एग्जाम के आंसर में लिखते हैं कि हम एक डे कंसीडर कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं, और कौन सा दिन है जो नहीं कंसीडर कर रहे हैं?
सर फ्राइडे शायद नहीं लेते हैं, ध्यान में नहीं आ रहा है.
आई एम नॉट सेइंग व्हिच डे वी डोंट टेक, बट क्या हम वो चीज लिखते हैं दैट इंटरेस्ट फॉर
नहीं,
दिस
लिखते नहीं है
इज
सर.
नॉट कंपाउंडेड? मतलब एक दिन का हम कैलकुलेशन 2 से करते हैं, बाकी सब का 1 से करते हैं, बट वो जो
Yes,
दिन
sir.
2 से कैलकुलेट कर रहे हैं, क्या हम उसका एक नीचे नोट लिखते हैं कि नहीं लिखते हैं? हम अज्यूम
Note-
करते हैं एग्जामिनर नोज इट ना, तो क्यों लिखना, राइट? कितने लोग ये अज्यूम करते हैं कि एग्जामिनर को पता ही है कि हम ये अज्यूम करने वाले हैं, तो हम क्यों हमारा अजम्पशन लिखे? It is mandatory to write this assumption because this assumption has marks. Calculation for Sunday is made at the rate of Saturday. ये assumption लिखना पड़ता है. If you don't write it, when it was an 8-mark question, they used to simply deduct 2 marks, despite everything being correct. Now, when it's a 5-mark question, unfortunately, they still deduct 2 marks for not writing this assumption. So, everything being correct, you end up losing marks for not writing something which is very simple. Won't take more than 2 minutes, 1 minute of your time. Clear? अभी इसी क्वेश्चन में you even have to find out the fixed leg and the floating leg. So floating leg तो तुमने daily compute करके लिख दिया, you got the answer, XYZ, everything got placed. How do you find the fixed rate interest? हम खाली fixed का interest upon principal into 100 कर देते हैं, right? As a calculation. How many of you all do that? The calculation जो भी है, suppose here we are getting the fixed leg as 100,16878. So how many of you will just write 16878 upon 1 crore into 100 into 365 by 12? गायब हो गए सब? ये है अभी तक अवेक और asleep? Awake. How many of you will just do the calculation and come? उसकी एक फॉर्मूला है, अगर पता हो तो, which is not a learning formula, it's a formula which is made randomly as per concept. कितने लोगों फॉर्मूला लिख के आते हैं एग्जाम में? How many of you write this formula and come? Vamsi is the only one who writes this formula. और कोई formula नहीं लिखता. Manjot writes the formula. So for people who do not write this formula, you will still end up losing 1 mark here. And for people who don't write the assumption, you will end up losing 2 marks here. So if it's an 8-mark question, the max you can get is 5. And if it is a 5-marker question in the descriptive section, the maximum you will get is 2 marks. क्योंकि जो माइनस करने हैं हमको मार्क्स, वो 2 और 1 ही है, हम उतने ही माइनस कर देंगे. So when you are solving AFM, wherever you are putting in a logical also formula, logic based formula, write it down. From formula I remember, how many of you all know there is a chapter known as mutual funds in your curriculum? Nearly everyone. How many of you all know there is a concept of holding period yield in that chapter? Nearly all would know holding period yield. When you have to represent it, that yield on a per annum basis, how do you all convert that holding period yield into a per annum yield? There are two approaches to do it, either by using the simple interest approach or by using the compound interest approach. How many of you all agree? अभी हम लोग सिंपल इंटरेस्ट को एग्जाम में सिर्फ एसआई और कंपाउंड इंटरेस्ट को सिर्फ सीआई लिख के आते हैं ना. That's wrong language of finance. You normally write it as money multiplier yield and effective annual yield. How many of you all knew these terms? Sorry, a question. How many of you all did not know this term? सबको पता था ये term? Rohan didn't know this. So if you simply just write SI and CI, then you will be deducted 1 mark for the total sum only on the ground of not knowing technicality. EAY I know, but other one I don't. Okay, so now you've learned another term, which is money multiplier yield, which is your MM/Y, and effective annualized yield is EAY. But if the question has said find out effective yield on a per annum basis, so which yield do we have to find? Effective yield on per annum basis. अगर क्वेश्चन में ऐसा लिखा है तो which yield will you end up finding? Kirti is saying EAY. Aman, HPR is income plus end value period. Correct. Upon 100. Correct. Your formula is correct for holding period yield. अभी जिन जिन लोगों ने बोला कि हम इफेक्टिव यील्ड ऑन अ पर एनम बेसिस में सिर्फ EAY ढूंढेंगे, then you'll get only half the marks. Because ICAI का ये स्टैंड है कि हमने तुमसे इफेक्टिव यील्ड मांगा है, हमने कहीं पे ये नहीं लिखा इफेक्टिव एनुअल यील्ड दो. So you are required to find out both and come in your exam as per MM/Y also and as per EAY also. उसका उनका ये लॉजिक और स्टैंड क्यों है वो उन्हीं को पता, बट दैट इज द लॉजिक एंड स्टैंड दैट दे हैव टेकन. So what will we do whenever we have to annualize yield anywhere, be it bonds, be it mutual funds, be it equity, we will always end up finding both yields, which is simple interest based yield known as money multiplier yield and compound interest based yield, which is known as effective annual yield. ये दो ऐसी चीजें हैं. The first one that I said, where you don't write assumptions and you don't write formula. And the second thing in mutual funds or bonds, where you don't write the technical name. This is the thing that will end up killing your marks in the exam. Calculation right होगा, answer भी right होगा, marks full नहीं मिलेंगे. Clear? So whenever you are doing any chapter, please ensure that you are writing down the technical words also in the technical language. समझा? पक्का? Anyone has any doubts? Clear? अभी प्रेजेंटेशन ऐसी करने की जरूरत नहीं है, ड्राइंग बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है. बनाओगे, टाइम है, ठीक है. नहीं है टाइम, ड्राइंग बनाना इज नॉट मैंडेटरी, बट योर कैलकुलेशन हैज टू बी प्रॉपरली रिटन एंड एक्सप्लेन. जैसे मैंने यहाँ पर किया, दिसंबर संडे assumption भी आ गया. It is separately standing also in the interest column. There is an opening principal amount, there is a closing principal amount, XYZ. So the calculation has to be clear also. It should not be confusing. तुम ऐसी लाइन नहीं बना पाओगे चलेगा, but at least an examiner should be able to clearly identify each column separately. समझा? Clear? So now just summarizing whatever we did in this particular webinar today, we discussed about putting the chapters in 4 categories. Category 1, which has equity, then it has bonds, then it has your business valuation, mergers, and portfolio. Category 2 being theory. Category 3 being advanced cap budgeting, mutual funds, and security analysis. And then your category D being forex and derivatives. This is the categories through which you should start and end studying. फॉरेक्स पहले इसलिए नहीं डलवा रहा हूँ बिकॉज अगर फॉरेक्स डाल दिया तो एंड तक भी तुम फॉरेक्स ही करते रहो. And this category equally applies for your 1.5 day studies. You have to start from chapters which will give you maximum coverage. Clear? जितने कम chapters लोगे उतना exam time पे stress आएगा. So try to cover maximum chapters with lesser concepts first. This will apply for all subjects irrespective. You pick up the smaller chapters which have more concepts and do them, because छोटी चीज में तुमको ज्यादा चीजें पूछी जाएगी, बड़ी चीज में से तुमको कम चीजें पूछी जाएगी, तो तुम्हारा टाइम ज्यादा जाएगा बट एग्जाम में वो कम मार्क्स के लिए आएगा, मे बी ना भी आए. क्लियर? देन वी डिस्कस ऑन हाउ टू सॉल्व MCQs, जिसके लिए तुम्हारी कैल्सी ट्रिक्स अच्छी होनी चाहिए. कैल्सियो गाइज, इफ यू कैन पॉसिबली मैनेज, get a calci from the DA series also for your exams, तो तुमको calculation और easy हो जाएंगे. It will help you to even check trial and error method का percentages कि कहाँ फंस रहा है answer, which currently you could not. And for those who have citizen, follow your traditional method. I will not recommend you all to change your calci at this point in time. MCQ or descriptive, what to do first in exam? Good question. What I would normally do, in the first 1 hour, that is from 2 to 3, that is 60 minutes. How much marks should I ideally cover? I should aim to cover how many marks in the first 1 hour? पहले मुझे ये बताओ, फिर मैं बोलता हूँ कि पहले क्या करना चाहिए. $40 पक्का कि ज्यादा कवर कर लेना चाहिए? I would normally recommend to cover 42 marks. That is 3 main questions. 49, 40. I would recommend 42 marks. Breakup would be as such. First should be your best optional question which you know. मतलब question number 3 best आता है मेरे, पहले question 3 करो. Then the second best optional question, and your third choice should be your question number 1, which is mandatory. Clear? समझा कि नहीं समझा? Then from 3 o'clock to 3:45, you should be doing your MCQ section, including the reading of the MCQ, because they are sums. Even when you glance through it, you'll realize what the question or from which chapter it is. So you will be mentally prepared कि मुझे calculations क्या करना है. Here you get saved because you don't have to do fair calculations. तुमको fairly पूरा लिखना नहीं है. You can just do rough calculations and tick your MCQ. So I would give a 45-minute timer from 3 to 3:45 for your 28 मार्क्स से ज्यादा नहीं होता 1 hour में, क्योंकि हम भावनाओं में बह जाते हैं. हमको आता है इसलिए हमको सब कुछ लिखना है. You will have only 1.8 marks per minute, 1.8 minutes per mark. तो अगर 1.8 minute है for 1 mark, तो 60 minutes is for how many marks? वो रेशियो लगा लेना. तो I would normally recommend doing 3 questions or at least 2.5 so that there's confidence. Confidence कब आएगा? 3 क्वेश्चन है, मैंने 42 अटेम्प्ट कर लिया, एटलीस्ट उसमें से 35 तो आ जाएगा. अगर मुझे 30 से 35 का श्योरिटी है और मैं MCQ उठाता हूँ, आई एम श्योर विद इन द 1 hour 45 minutes टाइम, आई एम कॉन्फिडेंट कि आई विल गेट 50 मार्क्स. 10 मार्क्स तो लाओगे ना एमसीक्यू में, 10 से 15 आउट ऑफ 30. आई एम श्योर एटलीस्ट 50 मार्क्स का तो कवरेज आ गया है मेरा. Then you should attempt the other 2 questions in the end, which is the time from 3:45 to 4:45. Attempt the 4th optional question and attempt the 5th optional question. Reason being ये थोड़े difficult वाले questions होंगे जो तुमको in one shot नहीं आ रहे. That is why schedule them later. ताकि अगर पेपर बाई चांस छूट भी जाए ना, you are not affected. But if you have a surety कि यहाँ पर 35 मार्क्स आ जाएंगे और यहाँ पर 30 में से 25 मार्क्स आ जाएंगे, what is the score that you are sure of? 60. In the last 1 hour 15 minutes, can you not write stuff which will at least end up giving you 20 marks? आराम से possible. बस जो छोटी छोटी चीजें, assumptions, formulae, ये लिखना मत भूलना, because that is where you will end up losing your marks unnecessarily. Clear? समझा? And if you honestly ask me, AFM is one such paper जो आराम से खत्म हो जाता है in 3 hours. You don't need much time for a paper like AFM. क्योंकि उसमें chapters बहुत कम है. So for you to recollect everything from every chapter, there is lesser storage which you have to recover as compared to other subjects. So यहाँ marks 80 लाना is easy. Very easy. Just write everything properly. Don't skip up on writing assumptions or your calculations. वो बहुत भारी पड़ेगा. Fair enough? So with this, so Manjot has a question, which is the most important study material to cover? ICI study material is the most important one to cover, obviously. Then whatever author's book or whatever classes notes that you have, you should try to cover that. And don't forget to cover last 2 attempts का MTP and RTP. This is a must. इससे ज़्यादा कुछ cover होता है, good. But last 2 attempts RTP, last 2 attempts MTPs is a must. When I say last 2 attempt MTPs means 4 MTP question papers, because every attempt has 2 mock test papers. And खुद के attempt का तो करना ही है obviously. So basically, if students are giving their examination in May 25, you need to cover May 24 RTP, November 24 RTP, May 25 RTP. For AFM, if you all know, ICI has yesterday or day before yesterday come up with case-based scenarios. MCQ questions का booklet subject-wise बना के they put it on the website of ICI. So refer from that also. Clear? Plus 2 mock test papers will come for each attempt. So you have to at least see these 9 items before going for your examination. Obviously ICI study mat तुमको देखना है एक बार, and तुम्हारे जो भी classes या author की books तुमने refer की है, you have to go through it once. That is implied. Now when you're studying right now, you have to start learning to mark questions as LDR or star mark, which you will see that you need to do on the last day. Clear? So that last day तुमको वापस कोई एक LDR mark ना करना पड़े. Clear? Vamsi has a question: within how many minutes OMR details like hall ticket number, MCQ booklet number, bubbling exam? Max 5 minutes. 5 minutes से ज़्यादा नहीं लगता उसको, if you do it carefully. What I would normally do is I would mark all the MCQ options on my question paper of MCQ itself in the beginning when I'm solving them. So जब भी solve करूँगा from 3 to 3:45, as soon as I get an answer, I will tick them on my answer sheet, and then in one go, after my all MCQ answers are ticked in my answer question paper, I'll start and do the bubbling for all the 15 or 20 or 25 or 10 MCQs that they have. ताकि मैं एक ढूंढो bubbling करो, दूसरा ढूंढो bubbling करो, तीसरा ढूंढो bubbling करो, मैं time ना जाए. Finish a case study, mark all answers of that case study and then bubble it, or solve all case studies and mark the bubbles in the last one, not last 1 minute, at the end of the MCQ paper का time, which is at around 3:40, 3:40. That is also fine. End का मतलब 5 बजे नहीं, तो 5 बजे कभी नहीं आएंगे. November 24 attempt paper was tough. How to manage tough paper? That is the key. इसलिए तो मैंने टफ क्वेश्चंस तुमको ज्यादा टाइम दिया. इफ यू सी द टफ क्वेश्चंस हैव मोर देन 1 hour टू सॉल्व. इसलिए बोला सबसे पहले इजी क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करो. ट्राई टू गेट मैक्सिमम कवरेज फ्रॉम दोज इजी क्वेश्चंस इन दैट 1 hour. इसलिए 40 से 42 मार्क्स का कवरेज बोला. करेक्ट. तब जब तुम कम टाइम में अपने बेस्ट क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर लोगे ना, you will end up having more time to solve questions which are a bit challenging, क्योंकि वहां तुमको ज्यादा दिमाग चलाना पड़ेगा. So that less time for easy questions will compensate for more time for difficult questions. It's time management end of the day. Clear? Aman, how to prepare for IBS AFM part? My group 1 cleared enough. Unfortunately, you'll have to study AFM वापस. मतलब वो पूरा सब्जेक्ट उनको देखना ही पड़ेगा एक बार for IBS. You'll not have to learn everything, but you'll have to glance through AFM again to know कि भाई किस चैप्टर में क्या था. Which type of questions have a higher chance of being asked as MCQ? Those questions which have 4 to 5 parts themselves in the descriptive answers. Like you have a question from mutual funds, which has the answers as 20.50, 25.95, 26.75. कितनों को याद है ये question? A mutual fund dividend reinvestment plan of 1 lakh in the beginning and then 11,296.11 units in the end. That can be asked as MCQ. Your questions on state value of bonds, market value of bonds, premium discount period that you have in bond analysis, theory part at the end. That can be asked as MCQ. In mergers where you have 5 parts, what is the swap ratio? What is the EPS after merger? What is the MPS after merger? What is the market capitalization after merger? What will happen if bonus shares are issued? A question like that can also be asked as MCQs. Your questions on Sunidhi Chauhan and mutual fund can be asked as MCQs. Your questions on dividend equalization in mutual fund can be asked as MCQs. Your questions in Forex, IFM, which are about your Euro convertible bond, ECBs wala part jo hai, that can be asked as MCQ. So everything which you have in descriptive, which have 2 to 3 sections or 2 to 3 questions which follow it, can be asked as MCQs. Clear? और कोई डाउट, दुविधा, दर्द, शंका, पीड़ा, कष्ट, problems, tension in AFM, then you can shoot your questions in the chat box itself, or you can unmute yourself and ask. That's also fine. Or should I assume कि तुम्हारे nearly सब doubts cover हो चुके हैं? I don't understand silence. Someone will need to either type it out or need to write. Do we need to solve questions before exam? Only solve those questions where you were stuck when you were doing your practice. Every question solve करना possible नहीं होता. But हर chapter से at least एक दो question तो ऐसे mark करके रखना जो तुमको पढ़ने हैं. Like if I have to take the example of a chapter of EVA, economic value added. There you have one question which is on orange, apple and grape. याद है ऐसा 3 companies है which you have to find the EVA for? I would normally do that one question from the entire chapter of EVA for the exam. I'll just solve it. Simple, क्योंकि वो एक sum करके मेरा पूरा chapter revise हो जाता है. Like that way, from each chapter, try to find out 2, 3 or 3, 4 questions जिनको solve करके you will get confidence in the 1.5 days. Plus, you will be able to cover majority of that chapter or nearly full chapter in that day. अभी forex derivatives में possible नहीं है. Because after every 3 sums there is a new concept, and after every 3 sums you will have to mark one question which you have to solve on the last. तो ऐसा नहीं होगा. So there be very selective कि जहाँ पर तुम सबसे ज्यादा फंस रहे हो वही solve कर रहे हो. And for theory questions, don't just write the head point correctly. अंदर का जो मिर्च मसाला लिखोगे ना for 3-4 lines, वो भी थोड़ा logical लिखना. The words that were there in that paragraph, try to write 2-3 at least of that paragraph. Don't just add head point और उसको ही explain कर देना. Like in what do you say, in the chapter of startup finance, there is modes of sources of funding a startup. Personal financing. Investors should put in personal finance from their own account. ऐसा नहीं लिखना है. What is personal financing? Funds available from one's own saved up capital over the years should be a mode of sourcing the startup. ऐसा कुछ लिखोगे, it makes sense. So just don't write the head point and elaborate that head point only using the same word. वो गलती मत करना, फिर तुमको खाली head point के ही marks मिलेंगे, अंदर के marks नहीं मरेंगे. In questions like in which phrase is given, how to start that question. I didn't understand. In questions like in which phrase means what? I'm a bit confused. You can unmute yourself and ask. Manjut, you're there? Like success planning. Are you saying succession planning? So succession planning, if you see, is a very broad-based answer that you have in your curriculum. You don't have much of points to explain succession planning. फिर उसमें आगे क्या होता है? There you have pointers. These are the steps, these are the risks and all of that. But what is succession planning? You see the definition, you paraphrase it in like 1-2 words, and then you write that particular thing only. You don't need to learn everything, but it should also not be that succession planning is fully in your own words. Like तुम succession planning का definition क्या है? Or what does succession planning mean? Definition need not be word to word matching with what the module says, but it should have it should at least have some words which are there in the paragraph or which are there in the definition of succession planning. आगे के prepositions you can add in your own words. That is fine. Clear? Anyone has any other doubts, or should we now wrap up the session? I'll hand over to Mayur. अगर किसी को और कोई doubt नहीं है तो